welcome to Oaklanside 510. I'm Tasneem Raja. Each week on the 510, we catch you up on some of the biggest news in Oakland and take you behind the headlines. Today's deep dive, Barbara Lee's first 100 days as Oakland's mayor. And headlines on Oakland's second ever Michelin-starred restaurant, a Temescal motel that's transforming into supportive housing, and our in-depth interview with Oakland's fire chief. Last but not least, Azucena Racia helps you plan your weekend. Oh, and hey, if you haven't already, I'm hoping you will answer 3 super simple questions about this podcast. The link to do that is at the very top of the show notes. Thank you to everybody who's chimed in so far. Your responses have been so helpful as we think about the future of this podcast experiment. All right, let's get into it. I'm here with Darwin, our senior news editor, to run through some of our latest headlines. How you doing, Darwin?
Doing good.
All right, glad to hear it. I want to start off with some exciting culinary news. I hear that Oakland's restaurant scene just got a huge tip of the cap.
This is really exciting. Sun Moon Studio in West Oakland just earned a Michelin star. It's tucked away in this industrial stretch, blocks away from where the Ballers play, totally nondescript from the outside. Inside, it's this tiny but gorgeous place with just 12 seats. The chefs are Alan Shu and Sarah Cooper. They work directly with local farms like Full Belly Farm, K&J Orchards, and local producers like Hodo Soy. On any given day, Sarah might be mixing red corn for her polenta and sourdough. Alan might do quail from Wolfe Ranch with grilled shishito peppers. I love shishito peppers. And Bing cherries. Who doesn't love Bing cherries?
Right.
They're really letting these California ingredients shine. And by the way, at Sun Moon, there's literally just Alan and Sarah in the kitchen. There's like nobody else there helping them.
Okay, yes, chef. And this is only the second Oakland restaurant to get a Michelin star, right?
That's my understanding. Commis was the first back in 2010.
Okay, Sun Moon Studio. Got to check it out. The next story I want to talk about is on the Maya Motel in Temescal. So what's happening there?
Yeah, the Maya Motel, it's on Telegraph Avenue. It's right in the heart of Temescal. It's being converted from a hotel into 23 studio apartments. These are specifically for people experiencing homelessness. This is happening through California's Home Key program. That provides state funding to turn motels and hotels into permanent supportive housing for people transitioning out of homelessness. This is actually the 10th building in Oakland to get Home Key funding. Since 2020, Oakland has received over $105 million through this program. That's created almost 500 affordable housing units.
Okay, so $105 million for 500 units. Is that a lot? Is that a little? How should we think about this?
It's a lot. It's a lot of money to solve the homelessness problem, particularly when you're building transitional housing. And people need to know that like the construction cost or renovation cost, that's just part of it. You've got to have programmatic costs. You know, people need services once they're in these units.
What are they going to look like after the renovation?
Yeah, they're going to have kitchenettes, private bathrooms, services like free internet and laundry. Operation Dignity is going to manage the property and connect residents to like substance abuse, treatment, mental health support, job training. And what's interesting is there are already 3 other Home Key sites within a mile of this motel. There's the Imperial Inn at Temescal and Clifton Hall. So Temescal is actually becoming a hub for this type of supportive housing.
Okay, one final story I want to talk about. Our public safety reporter, Rosalind Romero, had a long interview with Oakland's fire chief. It's one of my favorite things that we have published recently. Tell us about Chief Covington.
Yeah, this was a fascinating interview with Damon Covington. He's been Oakland's fire chief for about 2 years now, but he's been with the Oakland Fire Department for 26 years total. He grew up in Oakland. He went to Bishop O'Dowd for high school. He started out as a paramedic. He told Rosalind the job is a labor of love and sacrifice for him. It's really clear this is incredibly personal.
Okay, so how is OFD doing these days, according to the fire chief?
He was really candid about staffing shortages and how that leads to mandatory overtime and burnout for firefighters. He explained that just 18 months ago, they had 62 people on long-term injury leave, some of it mental health related. That meant other firefighters had to work mandatory overtime to cover shifts, and the department wasn't free to make hires to fill those spots. They've cut that number by 2/3, which is huge progress, but it's still pretty tough for them.
Right.
He said it was taboo at one time to talk about mental health in the fire service. This was like when he was coming up through the ranks. But he said the pandemic was a turning point. They had people attempt suicide within the department. Now they're building mental health programs for both active firefighters and retirees, and hopefully things get better.
I certainly hope so. That's so important. What about the daily experience of being on the job today?
Yeah, he said Oakland's call volume keeps going up. He said there are almost 80,000 calls a year now.
Wow.
That's like double what it was 50 years ago. But at the same time, they have the same number of firefighters they've had in the department for decades. And get this, if they order a fire engine today, it won't arrive until 2029. There's like a 4-year wait because every fire department in the country is trying to replace aging equipment, but there aren't enough manufacturers to meet that demand. And these aren't cheap. Fire engines cost like $1.8 million, trucks cost $3 million. So they're really dependent on federal grants to afford new equipment. But Chief Covington also shared some practical advice for residents about emergency preparedness. People should sign up for AC alerts. Having a go bag ready is really important, and they should know their evacuation zone numbers. He emphasized that in a major emergency, the fire department's 475 people can't help everyone, so community preparedness is crucial.
Wow, we're talking about 475 people responding to 80,000 calls a year. Okay, just in case you needed extra incentive to check this story out, it includes a very sweet photo of Fire Chief Covington's dog, Jax.
Yeah, Rosalind included that in her draft, and when I was editing the story, I looked at it and I was like, oh yeah, we're publishing this. Yeah.
Yeah, you got to have Jax. Thanks so much, Darwin. You can find all of these stories at oaklandside.org and in the show notes. Coming up, I'm going to talk with Oaklandside City Hall reporters Eli Wolfe and Natalie Orenstein about Mayor Barbara Lee's first 100 days. Oakland Mayor Barbara Lee just hit her first 100 days in office, and she's facing enormous expectations from residents who want immediate solutions to crime, illegal dumping, homelessness, and Oakland's budget crisis. She's also had to navigate federal threats from President Trump while working to heal a deeply divided city. Oh, and by the way, in case you forgot, she has just 2 years to do all of this. Remember, she was elected to finish out the term of former mayor Sheng Tao, who was recalled in November and is currently being investigated by the FBI for alleged corruption and bribery. So, yeah, just 16 months left, unless Mayor Barbara Lee decides to run again. Last week, Oaklandside City Hall reporters Eli Wolfe and Natalie Orenstein sat down with Mayor Lee for an extensive interview about her first 100 days and what she's planning next. Eli and Natalie, welcome to the show.
Good to be here.
Thanks for having us.
Okay, guys, so first, set the scene for us. What was it like sitting down with the mayor? What's the vibe in her office these days?
Well, I noticed off the bat that she's redecorated since Sheng Tao occupied the same space. She has a portrait up, and she has a kente cloth, some personal touches in the waiting room. After a few minutes, we were ushered into the conference room where the mayor met us. We chatted with her for a while, and then we settled into about a 30-minute interview.
Eli, what's stuck with you since that conversation?
Yeah, I think a big general takeaway I had was that Lee compressed a lot of work into 100 days, but there's just still so much that she has promised to deliver, and she has less than half a normal term to get it all done. So she has sort of characterized this period as like this 100-day sprint, and I think that it's actually going to be followed by another 100-day sprint and another. So the pace isn't going to break.
I want to talk about one of her biggest challenges, unity. Look, everybody understands Oakland is deeply divided. Just a few days after Lee's victory, listeners, you may have seen a map that was shared a lot on social media showing this very clear divide. Lee won every single precinct in the Flatlands, and she lost every single precinct in the Hills. She campaigned heavily on this promise of being a unifier. When you guys talk to her, what does she say about how that's going?
Yeah, her approach seems to be basically showing up everywhere.
We've just been everywhere in the city to try to bring the city together by my presence, listening and taking advice and input from everybody.
She's held in all these different corners of the city. She's gone to churches, community centers, even the Italian Colors restaurant in the Hills, where she was not the top vote getter. She says during these sessions, people have been coming up to her and saying, like, hey, we didn't vote for you, but thanks for being here. We're glad you won. If that's true, it suggests maybe she is beginning to build these bridges that she's trying to.
Yeah, something else she brought up is that everywhere she goes, people kind of hit on the same concerns. It's public safety, it's homelessness, it's cleanliness of city streets. And, we see that in data that has come up in city surveys. There was one earlier this year conducted by the city's Budget Advisory Commission, which found that those three priorities are kind of the top priorities for basically all demographic groups in the city.
Then there's the challenges that come from outside the city. For one thing, President Trump has hinted at sending National Guard troops to Oakland for immigration enforcement. After what's happened in LA, many Oakland residents are bracing for ICE raids. How is she preparing for that?
She was surprisingly direct about what the city is doing about this, but she was very light on details. She said that they have plans, but she wouldn't reveal the details for obvious strategic reasons. We brought up the fact that, in some jurisdictions, masked federal agents have been snatching people off the street. We asked her if she has a plan for that, if she's been discussing it with, her counterparts, and she said, we can't talk about that. So, in general, what she said was that they're working on three fronts. One of those is keeping the peace if federal troops show up. Another is protecting immigrant families. And then also developing legal strategies with the city attorney for if any of these scenarios unfold.
Right. She said that this kind of intervention strategy by the feds is designed to provoke chaos, in her words. So one of her plans is to create these designated spaces for peaceful protests.
Ah, okay.
Yeah. I think if anyone has any familiarity with Oakland activists and that history in the city, it remains to be seen how well they'll take to this plan. But that other piece, beyond the legal and strategic response here, is the human impact. And that's very much already happening in Oakland.
Right.
She mentioned that she's been meeting families who are avoiding medical care out of fear. She spoke about a parent she met who's undocumented and is afraid to take their kid to heart surgery because they're worried they might encounter ICE at the hospital.
Oh, gosh. On that front, I want to talk more broadly about public safety. Now, this is interesting. Crime rates have been dropping for over a year, as we've been reporting, but Lee is pushing to hire more police officers.
Right. Crime is dropping, but at the same time, not everyone feels safer. These are paradoxes that could raise questions about the most effective use of funds or the city's overall public safety approach. Lee often emphasizes the success of ceasefire, which offers resources to people who've been identified as maybe most likely to engage in violence. It provides support and incentives for them to stop. This is a partially police-run program, but it's kind of more elaborate and community-based than some traditional crime-fighting methods. Regardless, Lee does support getting Oakland to a goal of 700 police officers. That's actually a mandate through Measure NN, which was passed by voters in November. But the city realistically is currently short-staffed. The budget that Lee supported also funded 5 police academies, but recruitment for those training programs is tough. Oakland's cost of living is really high, of course, and other Bay Area cities actually offer better perks to police trainees, like Alameda's $75,000 signing bonus.
That's a signing bonus on top of a salary?
Yep.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, and on the recruitment front, an interesting fact that Lee is having to contend with, and that's not a new problem, but is very much a current one, is that, a lot of Oakland police don't actually live in the city. I believe according to city data, it's like roughly 1 in 5 police officers actually live here. So she's looking into new recruitment strategies. I think that is going to involve working with organizations like the NAACP, local LGBTQ plus organizations, to try to find new recruits. They're also looking at community safety ambassadors, the folks that you probably see in commercial corridors or downtown wearing blue jackets, as potential people to, join OPD. She also talked during the interview about building this 7-city regional partnership to prevent gun violence. Not a lot of details there, but we're following up with her about that. And, her budget did increase police funding despite making cuts elsewhere. Kind of maintaining that traditional investment in police is very much a priority for her.
So I want to hear what she told you about a different issue that just about everyone in Oakland can relate to, illegal dumping. We see this everywhere in the city. I'm wondering, when you sat down with her, what did she tell you about her plan to fix this problem?
Yeah, she has a kind of like multi-pronged plan to address this. I don't think there's anything super new here. And so far the results are mixed. Something that her administration is touting is that, in 100 days, they've cleaned up a ton of trash. They said that they cleaned up about 30 tons of waste removed near schools. They cleared an unspecified amount of trash from 30 miles of streets. That's not too shabby. But the enforcement part is a challenge here. People keep dumping. And so one of the things that she is trying to work on is to set up this group with the DA's office where the city can refer cases over for prosecution for people who have been caught illegal dumping. No prosecutions have been made yet, according to Lee. And she says that the DA needs to staff up to handle this. Again, we don't have a ton of details on that, but we're following up. Kind of striking stat, just to put all this in perspective, is that, media reports have come out that since 2021, Oakland issued about around 3,000 illegal dumping citations that totaled about $1.3 million. But they only collected about $109,000, from those citations. It's a tiny fraction of the total penalties that have been imposed, and that kind of neatly reflects how broken enforcement has been on that front. So, Lee and the city, they've put additional money into new enforcement technology and hiring more of these environmental enforcement officers, plus setting up more cameras to identify dumpers. But it's one of these situations where time will tell whether that's actually going to pay off and, help deter the problem.
Okay, I want to talk about another aspect of your conversation with the mayor. Mayor Lee also promised to bring transparency to city government. We know Oakland is still living through an FBI investigation of our former mayor. What did she tell you about rebuilding trust?
Yeah, that's kind of the big meta issue here. People are really disenchanted and distrustful of city leaders, which really impedes progress on a lot of fronts. Lee very quickly launched a working group to deal with charter reform, basically the idea of rewriting Oakland's constitution, if you will, to change the structure of city government and change who has what kinds of power. That process will be unfolding over the coming months. Lee also promised a forensic audit of city contracts. That hasn't quite started yet, though. She also talked about data a ton during the interview. She seemed pretty stunned to find out when she came into office how antiquated a lot of Oakland's systems are. I remember her saying that some spreadsheets are still being done by hand in the city.
Ouch.
Her office hired the first ever kind of data and technology specialist for that part of the city, a person named Erica Joy Estrella. She's working on bringing these systems up to date and making sure they kind of talk to each other and work in collaboration. This is all incredibly expensive, though, and we all know Oakland doesn't have a lot of money right now. Lee said she's trying to attract some private philanthropy to help upgrade everything.
Yeah, I think one thing that really stuck with me when she was talking about this stuff was just that she kept emphasizing that she wanted to get accurate numbers and data as part of her overall plan for, implementing any number of improvements in the city. She said that she's, quote, really into truth-telling, that she wants to drill down on numbers until she believes that those numbers are accurate. That's why she puts so much stock in, this new technology hire that she's made. That approach may frustrate some folks because it means that she is going to be looking for the data first before implementing policy. But she emphasized that, she believes people deserve the truth. And it sounds like, she believes the truth will be found in those numbers.
Okay, I want to turn to a different issue. There are 5,500 people experiencing homelessness in Oakland, and survey after survey shows this is a top concern for Oakland residents. Now, Lee just announced a new Office of Homelessness Solutions. Natalie, you've been reporting on homelessness at the Oakland side for over 5 years now. You've seen different homelessness initiatives come and go. What do you think this new office that Lee just created is meant to accomplish?
Yeah, she's trying something the city has taken a couple stabs at in the past, which is coordinating between all of these disjointed departments, entities, programs, policies around homelessness. The difference is this office will now have a larger, dedicated team working on this issue than they've had before. And they'll be working on coordinating efforts like homeless camp cleanups, new shelters, building supportive housing. At the same time, there's this broader debate going on about how to address homeless camps. One council member, Ken Houston, wants the city to really ramp up these closures and shut down more homeless camps. Whether Oakland has shelter to provide those residents or not, this would be a big change to how the city has approached this question in the past. We asked Lee what she thinks about this, and she actually seems to disagree with Houston. She said shelter is a critical piece of how the city should deal with encampments.
Now, I know you also asked Lee some more personal questions. What did you guys learn from her?
Yeah, bear in mind, we only had about 30 minutes to speak with her, so we didn't get to spend too much time asking her sort of about herself, but we did ask about, who she has taken really important guidance from, who she turns to for advice. That's something we're, personally interested in as reporters who are covering her policy making. We want to know where she's getting her ideas. She gave a pretty revealing and interesting answer, which is that she said that she still listens to the voice of her late mother every day as mayor. If you know anything about Lee, you probably know that she grew up in El Paso, Texas during segregation. She's drawing from a family history of overcoming obstacles. That's something that she brings up a lot when she talks about her background. When we were talking about her mother briefly, she gave us a phrase that I guess her mother repeatedly told her, which, sticks with her today and informs a lot of her work as mayor.
And she always said, in spite of all the challenges, she said, can't is not in the dictionary. Look it up.
That's kind of like a motto, a credo that she's been drawing on, I guess.
Okay, so should we expect Mayor Lee to run again? As we said, she's just got a 2-year term here. It's going to be over in the blink of an eye. And clearly, from everything you guys discussed with her, there's a lot she wants to do.
We did ask her this. She didn't answer. She deflected and said, that's the voters' decision. But she has already created a fundraising committee should she decide to run again. And that's something we noted in an editor's note in the article.
Okay, I want to wrap up here. What's your overall assessment? Is Mayor Lee delivering on her 100-day promises?
She's made concrete progress on crime reduction, waste removal, budget stabilization, sidewalk repair. We get into a little more of this in the article. But at the same time, there are major promises that haven't manifested yet. Things like the forensic audit. Her approach is very methodical. It's very step-by-step, 10-point plan, meetings every day. This may be too methodical for residents who want that immediate change so that they can see and feel in their everyday lives. Or some people might be relieved to find this out because we just came out of a very chaotic number of months and years, really, in Oakland.
Okay, Eli Wolfe and Natalie Orenstein are City Hall reporters. Thank you so much, guys. You can find their in-depth interview with Mayor Lee at oaklandside.org, and you guessed it, we'll link to it in the show notes. Coming up, we're going to hear about weekend events from arts reporter Azucena Garcia. I'm here with Azucena Garcia, Oaklandside's arts and community reporter, to help you plan your weekend and beyond. How you doing, Azucena?
Hi, Tasneem. I'm doing great.
All right, so tell us, what is happening in Oakland this week?
There are some really cool events coming up. Let me start with the biggest one of them all. There's a soccer match that's going to be huge this weekend. Over 40,000 fans are expected to be at the Coliseum to root on their favorite team. Mexico is playing Japan in a friendly match. It's been over 10 years since Mexico's national team played in Oakland, and Japan has never played here before. They're both getting ready for the 2026 World Cup.
That is Saturday, September 6th at 6:30 p.m. at the Coliseum. Tickets range from about $100 to $400.
Also, there's a really special walking tour coming up. It's about Black history in West Oakland. It's called the Black Liberation Walking Tour. David Peters is a third-generation West Oakland native, and he's been hosting these tours for a few years now. He tells us stories of people who live there and shape Oakland's culture and politics.
This is the Black Liberation Walking Tour. It's happening on Saturday, September 6th at 10 a.m. The tickets are sliding scale, and they're going to email you the starting point when you RSVP. Okay, there's also something coming up for Magic fans, right?
Yes, the Oakland Magic Circle is celebrating their 100th anniversary. They're the oldest independent magic club west of the Mississippi River. I actually wrote a story about their history earlier this year. The club is celebrating this milestone with a gala show featuring magic, comedy, the whole package.
Okay, that's really cool. That's Tuesday, September 9th at 6 p.m. at the Scottish Rite Center. Tickets are about $30 to $50, and it includes dinner. So any other highlights for the week?
Yeah, there's also a classical music event on Sunday, and it's part of the Glenview Classical Series. It features the music of Fanny Hensel. She's a 19th century German composer and pianist. For way too long, she's been in the shadow of her more famous brother, the composer Felix Mendelssohn, but she's finally getting her proper place in music history, and this concert is an opportunity to hear her work. The work was arranged by Oakland musician Molly McCann for string quartet, and it will be performed by the Town Quartet featuring Monica Chu on piano.
That is Sunday, September 7th at 4 p.m. at St. Paul Lutheran Church. Tickets are about $20. Now, looking ahead, I have to say your roundup this week includes something really fun that's happening closer to the holidays.
Oh, yeah. So Macaulay Culkin is coming to the Paramount Theater to celebrate the 35th anniversary of the classic movie Home Alone. So there's a special screening of the movie followed by a Q&A with the actor.
Okay, so a screening of Home Alone with the man himself. That's going to be Monday, November 24th at the Paramount. Tickets will be from $60 to $260, and they include a Q&A with Macaulay Culkin after the movie. Thank you so much, Azucena. Thanks for your roundup. We'll have all the details and links in our show notes.
Thanks for having me, Tasneem.
We did it. That's the show. Thank you for listening to Oaklandside 510. And before I forget, remember I said I want to ask you 3 easy questions about this podcast. There's a link in the show notes below. We just want to know, how often do you read Oaklandside? What do you like about the podcast? What don't you like? Because remember, Oaklandside 510 is an experiment. We're going to try this out for 10 episodes. This is number 7. And then we're going to decide whether and how to keep this whole thing going. And you can help us figure that out. Thank you so much to everybody who's already answered the survey. Your input is so helpful. And please consider supporting the work we do here at the Oaklandside by becoming a member. Our reporting is free for you and all your Oakland neighbors to check out, but it costs real money to cover Oakland with the depth and attention our beautiful city deserves. Over 4,000 of your Oakland neighbors are already keeping the Oaklandside going by donating an average of just $10 a month, and we need you to join them. If your organization would like to advertise on this podcast, we would love to talk. That email address is editors@oaklandside.org. Thank you to Darwin Bongram for walking us through the headlines. Thank you to Natalie Orenstein and Eli Wolfe for walking us through Mayor Lee's first 100 days. Thank you to arts reporter Azucena Racia for keeping us in the know on weekend activities and upcoming events. Thank you to you, our audience, and every one of the 4,000 Oaklandside members who keep this work going. A lot of them, like I said, donating just $10 a month to this reporting. This show was produced and engineered by Callie Rhodes. Esther Kaplan was our editor. I'm Tasneem Raja. See you next week.